I found men's protection in wife's bag. I put inside a pepper spray. An act of cold, calculated retribution that was born not from a moment of hot rage, but from a slow, freezing realization that the foundation of my entire life was a carefully constructed lie. The suspicion had been a tiny, nagging seed planted in the back of my mind for months, watered by a series of small changes that seemed insignificant on their own, but together formed a terrifying pattern. It was in the way she had started placing her phone face down on the table, the new mysterious passwords that appeared on her devices, and the subtle but definite emotional distance that had grown between us in our own home, a space that once felt like a sanctuary. We would sit on the same couch, but she felt a million miles away, lost in thoughts she no longer shared with me, and the casual touches and easy laughter that had defined our marriage for a decade had slowly evaporated into a polite, chilling silence. The woman I loved was becoming a stranger, and the fear of what that meant festered inside me, growing larger and more terrifying with each passing day, until I could no longer ignore it. The moment of discovery was both mundane and utterly world-shattering, a quiet apocalypse that occurred on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday evening. She had asked me to grab her favorite lip balm from her purse, and as my fingers rummaged through the familiar contents, old receipts, loose change, a set of keys, they brushed against something small, square, and completely foreign. It was a sleek black box of a brand I didn't recognize, and the cold, hard reality of it in my hand sent a jolt of ice through my veins. Clipped to the box was a receipt from a pharmacy clear across town, dated just the day before, a piece of paper that felt like a death certificate for our marriage. I stood there in the hallway, frozen, the sounds of the house fading away as I stared at this object, this tangible proof that every one of my worst fears was true, and my world quietly collapsed in on itself. A strange, unnerving calm descended upon me immediately after the initial shock, a glacial stillness that was far more frightening than any outburst of tears or anger could have been. I did not scream, I did not throw things, I did not even cry. Instead, I carefully noted the exact position of the box in her bag, my movements methodical and precise, as if I were defusing a bomb that had already exploded. I took the box into my home office and locked the door, placing it on my desk under the harsh glow of the lamp, and I stared at it, this symbol of my wife's betrayal and my own profound failure. The pain was so immense it was almost abstract, a white noise scream in my soul, and from that void emerged not grief, but a sharp, clear, and terrifyingly focused plan for revenge. I would not give her the satisfaction of a dramatic confrontation, of tearful excuses and hollow apologies that would only be more lies layered on top of the ones she was already living. She had chosen to conduct her betrayal in secrecy, hiding her actions in the dark corners of her purse and her life, and so I would answer her in kind, with a secret of my own. The plan formed with crystal clarity. I would not remove the evidence, I would weaponize it. I would turn her tool of infidelity into an instrument of her and his downfall, a consequence that would be as shocking and painful as the moment I found that damned box. I needed something that would be invisible, something that would not be detected until it was far too late, something that would deliver a punishment as visceral and immediate as the emotional wound she had given me. The next morning, I told her I had a meeting across town, a lie that came to my lips as easily as her lies must have come to hers, and I drove to an army surplus store in a strip mall I never frequented. I walked the aisles with a detached focus, my eyes scanning until they landed on exactly what I was looking for, a small keychain-sized canister of high-potency pepper spray gel, known for being clear and incredibly adhesive upon contact. I paid in cash, avoiding any digital trail, and drove to a secluded spot by the river, where I sat in my car and meticulously prepared my revenge. With a steady hand I didn't know I possessed, I used a sharp needle to make a tiny, nearly invisible puncture in each foil packet in the box. I then carefully squeezed the lubricated contents out onto a napkin and used a small syringe to inject a precise amount of pepper gel into each one, sealing the tiny hole with a minuscule drop of superglue. The process was horrifyingly clinical, a silent, focused ritual of destruction that took me the better part of an hour. I worked with the precision of a bomb maker, each movement deliberate, each packet treated as a component in the device that would detonate their secret world. When I was finished, I wiped every surface clean, ensuring there was no residue, no trace of my tampering, and I placed the box back into the exact same position in her bag, burying it once more beneath her things. Driving home, I felt no thrill of anticipation, no guilt, only a hollow, cold emptiness, as if the man I had been was now a ghost, and this new, vengeful creature had taken his place. I had crossed a line from which there was no return, and I understood that I was not just punishing her, I was forever erasing the person I used to be. The call came later the next evening, a shrill, insistent sound that ripped through the quiet of our home. She was not home. She had left hours ago, citing a last-minute team dinner that required her presence, her excuse delivered with a smoothness that spoke of practice. When her name flashed on my caller ID, my heart did not leap with fear or anxiety. It beat a slow, cold, and steady rhythm of grim satisfaction. I answered on the fourth ring, saying nothing, simply holding the phone to my ear like a seashell, waiting to hear the sound of the storm I had created. What greeted me was not her voice, but a cacophony of chaos. A man's voice, screaming in a high-pitched, agonized shriek of pure terror, and the frantic, muffled sounds of panic and confusion. Then her voice cut through the bedlam, a ragged, hysterical shriek that was barely recognizable as human. David, something's happened. It's a nightmare, an emergency. You have to help," she screamed into the phone, her words tumbling over each other, choked by sobs and sheer, unadulterated panic. I could hear the raw, unfiltered terror in her voice, the sound of a situation spiraling violently and horribly out of her control. "We're at the Westin Hotel, room 412. It's Jason from accounting. There's something wrong. His skin. Oh God, he's burning." The name, Jason from accounting, landed with the finality of a judge's gavel, providing a name and a face to the faceless man who had helped destroy my life. Her voice broke into hysterical sobs, the sound of her world crumbling in real time. I remained silent for a long moment, letting the symphony of their suffering wash over me. His screams of pain, her cries of panic, and the distant wail of an approaching siren growing louder. I could picture the scene in that hotel room with brutal, vivid clarity. The chaos, the horror on her face, and him, this Jason, in excruciating, unimaginable agony from the chemical burns. There was no pity in my heart, no empathy for their plight. I had passed through the fire of my own pain and had emerged on the other side as something cold and hard and utterly remorseless. When I finally spoke, my voice was not raised. It was low, measured, and carried the absolute zero of emotional void, each word chosen with the precision of a scalpel and delivered with the chill of a tomb. "Burning?" I asked, my tone flat and devoid of any warmth or concern, a stark contrast to her hysterics. I let the question hang in the air, a hook laden with sinister implication, and I could hear her ragged breathing hitch on the other end of the line. The noise in the background seemed to fade for a moment, as if the universe itself were leaning in to listen to my verdict. I continued, "I found the box, Qley. The one in your bag, the one you bought the other day." The only sound from her end was a sharp, terrified gasp, the kind of sound someone makes when they realize the ground has disappeared from beneath their feet and there is nothing but an abyss below. I said, I know exactly what's happening in that hotel room, and I know exactly who Jason from accounting is." I paused, allowing the full, horrifying weight of my knowledge to crash down upon her, to strip away any last pretense of the lies she was living. The truth now laid bare in the midst of her chaos was a more powerful weapon than any anger I could have mustered. In that moment, she understood that I knew everything, and that this catastrophe was not some random terrible accident, but a direct and calculated result of her actions and my revenge. The silence from her end was now complete, filled only with the dawning, absolute horror of comprehension. I said, "I hope it was worth it." And my final words to her were not shouted in rage, but delivered with the quiet, devastating finality of a death sentence. I didn't wait for a response, for a plea or an excuse. I simply ended the call and placed my phone gently on the table beside me. The silence in our living room was now absolute, profound, and permanent. I did not move to go to the hotel. I did not pack a bag. I did not scream or cry or break down. I simply sat in my armchair in the home we had built together, and I stared at the wall where our wedding photo hung. The part of me that loved her was finally, officially dead, and in its place was a hollow, quiet emptiness. I had gotten my revenge, and as I sat there in the crushing silence, I understood with perfect clarity that I had destroyed us all in the process, and that we were now forever trapped in the hell I had so meticulously designed.